Arsenal at home. They haven't even scored against Arsenal at home in the league, is it?
Yeah, it's a tremendous win for Vidosic's team. I think they were excellent from start to finish today. They obviously had moments of real quality, you know, with their offensive players, Frank Kirby, Stankovic, Nikita Paris I thought was excellent. I thought defensively, a superb performance as well, really resolute. They had everything, and they've really put Arsenal to the sword and put them in a really uncomfortable position going into the final day.
We sat watching that Aston Villa game. What have we just witnessed? What have we just witnessed, Courtney, again?
Well, I think, one, you probably look at Brighton, they'll have watched that game and took a lot of, not necessarily hope, but looking at that, the analysis and thinking, right, well, we can do the same. They will effectively think they're a better team than Aston Villa. And if we can replicate that with our players, which I think similarly they did in terms of the high press, using the width. But, you know, from back to front, they were brilliant. As Izzy said, they were resolute. But that defending for me started from the front, the way that they pressed, taking their opportunities. And by the way, Sophie Bagley, the fact that she wasn't even due to start, comes in last minute before the game. And what an incredible performance from her.
Not just that, the fact that 5 players announced they're leaving Brighton ahead of the match. The manager didn't even, he knew they were going, he didn't know they were going to announce it then. Everything that team and squad went through to produce that on the pitch as a result.
Yeah, it was a really strange start to the game with the players announcing they're leaving, you know, by their own personal outlets on social media, and then obviously the club were not aware of that. The club then put out a statement, but you know what, that filters into the dressing room, and then the core group of players who are playing and himself, Dario Vidosic, have got a choice to make. Do you use that to sort of motivate you, or do you just park it? It's incredible the way that they dealt with that, and then they go and beat one of the top sides in this country.
Well, Torres Dottir there, one of those players to announce she's off, and a couple of great blocks from her defensively, seeing what she produced too. Yeah,
and to be honest, she might feel a bit silly now, to be honest, because it was a good performance from her, a good performance of the team, and who knows, she might be sticking to her guns, but there might be part of her that maybe feels a bit silly that she did it the way she did, as I guess that some of those players will. But regardless, it's about doing your talking on the pitch. Forget the social media, forget the PR. As a footballer, your first point of call is to perform on the pitch, and she's done that today, as of the rest of, I say, the 11, also the ones that came onto the pitch. It was a proper squad performance from Brighton today.
Playing like a team, that's the key from that. If you look in the contrast of both these sides, how settled that Brighton team looked in that win over Arsenal. Their first points at home over Arsenal, their first goals, rounding off a weekend that saw Everton win the Merseyside derby, that 2-2 draw in the Manchester derby that saw Manchester United take that final Champions League place. Finished 2-2 between Crystal Palace and Leicester. Palace far from going out of the league with a whimper. Chelsea with that 1-0 win at Spurs, and Aston Villa 3-2 at West Ham. So confirmation then of that table tonight as we head into the final weekend of the season. Arsenal second as it stands. They face Manchester United in that final game of the season, but Brighton, barring a huge goal swing, cement 5th in the WSL. If you have a little look at the match stats, Arsenal actually dominated everything apart from the one that matters, the goals, and in fact the yellow cards as well. 13 shots to 25, 4 goals to 2. No goals at home against Arsenal previously in the league, but Brighton had their first points and 4 goals to boot. Let's hear from 2 players who were crucial at both ends of the pitch, Sophie Bagley and Jelena Cankovic.
Well played, both of you. 2 of the heroes from an extraordinary day, actually, in this club's history. We've got goals here, we've got saves, but what an afternoon to be part of, Jelena.
Yeah, it's really a great shift from the team, and yeah, I'm so happy that I could contribute to this win. And yeah, it was really hard work. I mean, Arsenal is an amazing team, so it's always hard to play against them, but I think we kept working, we kept discipline, and we kept the game like we were doing everything that we said that we would do. So yeah, I think at the end we deserve this result, and yeah, I'm so happy for the team.
Sophie, no one worked harder than you. Just tell us about how your day unfolded, because I guess you drive to the ground or however you get here and you're thinking, you know, you're going to watch someone else play a goal, and it didn't quite work out like that.
Yeah, I found out as I was coming in from the warm-up, but yeah, you always have to be ready, and yeah, just glad we could help the team. Some great finishes as well today.
Well, it's supposed to be difficult to step in when you weren't expected to play. So what goes through your mind? How do you then get yourself ready to go out there and do what you did?
I didn't have much time to think, to be honest, so that's probably better. Yeah, just went in and got ready and came out and we knew what we had to do and we executed it.
We were talking about it in commentary that you'd made 8 saves, then you made an extraordinary save from Russo when the pressure was going on. And we were just watching back those replays. Did you get a little hand to the one at the end as well? Just tip that one onto the bar?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Sophie, what a day.
Thank you, yeah. A great day. I think we all want to finish the season on a high and, that just helps us out.
Well, Elaine, look, she's too modest, so how good was she?
She was amazing. I mean, it's really, it's so hard also coming in like that, but yeah, it's just amazing shift, and she helped us so much to get this result.
Yeah, so once you've got the good saves, you then need some good finishes to make the most of them. A chip, and before that, a volley. I mean, again, what are you thinking as that ball drops out of the sky? Because you caught that sweetly.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the second ball, so like when the ball comes like that, so I need to finish the tag, but I was like, I'm just going to shoot. And yeah, I mean, it was amazing finish, yeah.
if you do say so yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I need to boost myself a bit. But yeah, need to see it later how it looked actually from the side.
She's going to watch 100 times.
Look, Sophie, I guess what makes it more special is, I think before today, Brighton had never even scored against Arsenal at home. Never beaten them, never got a point against them, and also it guarantees, I think, your highest, or virtually guarantees your highest ever WSL finish.
Yeah, I think that's something we've been aiming for. We're 5th at the minute, I think, and that's where we want to finish. So, yeah, that helps us out massively.
So well done to you, well done to both of you. Yelena, player of the match went to Sophie. I'm sure it was a close run thing.
Sorry. We'll share.
Would you like to hand it over for us?
Of course. Here you go.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Showcase off, we're here to focus on just the brilliance of Sophie Bagley. 10 saves in that, which I think is the joint most in the WSL this season in the game. Just how impressive. To go from that standing start, literally, of thinking, oh, I'm stood here, but actually now I'm playing.
It's an interesting one because I was thinking about it, if you're a substitute, whether that be a goalkeeper or an outfield player, it is a professional requirement that you're ready. Of course, you could go on at any point. But I also think it's a mindset as well. You should be ready. You're a professional footballer, to step in. But the mindset that she entered the game with, calm, relaxed. She clearly knew the game plan in possession, because we know that Brighton likes to play with their goalkeeper. But these saves, absolutely exquisite. You talk about being in the right frame of mind, sharpness, because to put it lightly, Arsenal peppered, the goal today. And I thought they defended really well, Brighton. But then, of course, you need your goalkeeper to step up. And I thought she was commanding. She had authority about a game. This one here, I think, was quite crucial at a time. Russo coming in at the back. And this is the best of the bunch, because this is superb by Russo, but it's even better by Sophie Bagley. And then this one here, I'm not having it.
Are we counting it as a save?
Emma Burns said on commentary.
The reaction in the interview, I think she doesn't make the save, really, does she? But no, equally, she deserves all the plaudits today. And I think there's always a proclivity when it's an Arsenal, and we saw it last week with Aston Villa, where we talk about how poor Arsenal are, all these big teams. But we have to give a massive credit to Brighton, Aston Villa last week, because their level of performance, especially defensively, was absolutely exceptional.
How light is a football?
Serious question.
Yeah, how light is a football?
I actually don't know.
If I wave like that in front of you, felt it, right? So even if she's not directly touched it, just a wave
cause
in front
and effect.
Of it. Thank you. Cause and effect, exactly that. And her cause and effect today was to be rock solid at the back. Yes, conceding 2 goals, 1 late on as well, but just that confidence that we saw from her, which we haven't always seen. I mean, looking up the other end for Arsenal as well, it's a real difficulty for a lot of teams this season.
With regards to the depth of goalkeepers? Yeah, of course. We've seen with Zinsberger, of late for Arsenal, she's not been on the best form with Van Domselaar out injured. And, you'd like to think Renee Slagers will have Van Domselaar back in time for the end of the season and, of course, the Champions League final. But I do think that the way that Brighton played today, both teams want to use their goalkeeper in the build-up. In fact, most teams in the WSL want to use their goalkeeper in the way they build up. So there is a requirement that you can play with your feet. And you've got to make good decisions on the ball. And I thought Brighton's aggressive.
Let me interject there, sorry, Izzy, but the fact that the defenders don't help her at times, and I know we'll see it here in the analysis, and don't get me wrong, you can't completely change your style of play when a different goalkeeper comes in. But equally, there were so many hospital passes by the defenders and other players today into Zinsberger that also didn't help her cause.
Yeah, right, let's have a little look at the goals then, because we talked about some of them, just the real quality in these goals too. And I know I've said it several times, but they hadn't even scored against Arsenal at home in the league.
Yeah, but this is where Brighton are at right now. But look at this pass from Williamson here into Beth Mead. Beth has to protect the ball here. She has to take the foul. But on the flip side, the aggression from Caitlin Hayes is perfect. And then this here, we spoke about this at half-time, but if you just watch the way that Fran Kirby moves her body to get herself in a position where she shoots, the aggression here is perfect. No fouls. Sankovic adapts quickly, squares it. And it's just Fran Kirby in a nutshell. Like the way that, look at her first touch here. Bang. Catley doesn't get tight enough at all. That's another story to this goal. But you can't deny the quality attached to this. It's on a postage stamp into the top corner. It's superb from Fran Kirby.
She came off. We're hearing it's just a precaution, hopefully. They equalised Arsenal, and then Cankovic with her first goal again.
Yeah, and I love this in terms of it's a hit with a lot of power, but it's still a controlled volley. How many times you see that coming out to the edge of the box, the player absolutely skies it over the box, but you see that in terms of that technical ability, she doesn't go laces with it. It's almost sort of side of the foot, but she strikes straight through it. You see that little shuffle in the feet as well, just to make sure she's in the right position to hit it. Yes, Arsenal don't get out quick enough, but yet again, it's a fantastic finish.
Her second goal, I mean, she hadn't scored since December. That was only her second goal of the season. This is her third.
Yeah, and this is building from the back. Arsenal here, Brighton are able to be aggressive with the two central midfield players. Arsenal are looking to play a series of passes to kind of tempt Brighton out of their structure. But what Brighton do really well here is get nice and compact. And it's just this one here now. Sankovic jumps onto Zinsberger, which makes her make a decision. And this, somewhat fortuitous, nonetheless, it's a great interception. And then the finish is of the highest quality. Again, you know, a player who's clearly buoyed by a goal in the first half. You know, confidence is through the roof. But it's just this jump here. Sankovic comes out the midfield. She's got the licence to jump and go. She goes with aggression, pushing Zinsberger into a place she doesn't want to be. She gives the ball away. She's bang on side, Sankovic, because she's the highest player, level with Catley in here. But the awareness, and then it's deft and it's intricate and it's perfect. And that's a huge goal from Brighton, and fully deserved.
Again, a pass for that ball, a couple of passes as well. The assists from Brighton, just as good quality as some of the goals as well. Then into the fourth goal, and you're thinking, a dreamland for Brighton.
Yeah, it isn't. But again, it's the way that they press. They go together as a unit, and I've been there as a centre forward, and we see that with a lot of these Brighton goals where maybe a centre forward would go and nobody comes with you. You don't get your team to come with you. This way, they win it a little bit deeper, and then this is about Seike's movement. The ball into her is exceptional, by the way. But you can see here, she's across the line. She doesn't go too early. She's pointing. She's saying exactly where she wants it. She runs across the line off the back shoulder of McCabe, and it's a nice finish. And you see there, the touch initially gets her across McCabe, and actually the little bobbling here almost does her a favour, because then she can lift it over Zinsberger, and at this point, Brighton are in dreamland.
Since beating Lyon and making it to the Champions League final, Arsenal have now lost back-to-back games and conceded 9 in the league. Plenty to think about for the Arsenal boss, Renee Slegers, with Pat.
Well, Renee, what's happening at the moment? Can you get your head round what we're seeing from your team?
Yeah, so you're referring to us in the last two WSL games, and we concede 9 goals, and it's we just said it straight away as a team. We don't think it's acceptable, and we of course don't want this to happen. And I think there's different reasons. The Villa game was a different game. We came from something else, and I think the goals we concede are different from today. I think we concede 3 goals from turnovers while we have possession. So. We're very aware of it, and now we had to learn 2 very tough lessons coming off of a big success. So, but that's a part of being a top team, and we have to learn, because this can't happen to us. So we have to find solutions, and we want to move forward.
The Aston Villa game, just a couple of days after a Champions League semi-final, I guess in some ways that's easier to get your head round. Is today more of a shock?
Yeah, of course, because I think when we go and play this game, this is not what we're expecting, and it's not what we're about. So I think it's definitely a shock. I think they get full reward for the chances they create, the 4 goals they get. A couple of those finishes are fantastic finishes. but that doesn't take away that everything that we need to do, we need to do better. So it's definitely not what we expected coming here, and that's definitely not what we prepared for. So from now on, we have to do everything to be better next game against Man United.
Do you have any kind of sense that even if it's just 1 or 2%, the players are distracted, like that Champions League final in, I think, 19 days is just somewhere at the back of their minds and is affecting what we're seeing now?
Of course, it's intense for the players, where we come from, what's ahead of us, but we have to be in the moment, and that's the $1 million question. So we're going to analyze, and I'll be working until late tonight, and then tomorrow we want to try and get the details right and put our finger on what it is and how we want to move forward.
Does it make that Manchester United game really, really important? I mean, I guess it was anyway, but you win it, you guarantee second, and you take some momentum into obviously a massive match. You've still got a chance. You stand here now, like, obviously really disappointed.
Yeah.
Chance to have an outstanding season still.
Yeah, so we went for it. We knew what we wanted to do, needed to do to secure the second place in the league, and we weren't successful, and now it's about getting everything right and do it against Man United instead.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Renee. Good luck.
How to solve a problem like Arsenal? If we look at the last 10 games, so conceded 18 goals, half of those have come in the last 2 games. What's changed? Is it as simple as saying they made it to the Champions League final, we're distracted?
Maybe. I wouldn't say it's maybe conscious, but maybe with some of these players there's an unconscious that they've never played in a Champions League final, maybe never thought at this point in time specifically they were going to get to a Champions League final. So maybe there is an element of self-preservation. I'm not saying putting yourself before the team, but this will be one of the biggest days in their career. They've got nothing to play for effectively in the league. I think that's sort of sewn up in terms of now the Champions League places. So maybe it is that unconscious that they're thinking, I want to be in the right place for the Champions League, and taking their eye off the ball a little bit. And even within the staff and the management, you always focus on the next game. You always do that. And sometimes we joke, don't we, and laugh about, it's a cliche. You have to do that. But I think there's maybe a lot in the back of the minds of the staff and the players that they're looking maybe into the future a little bit too focused and not on the games in hand.
Someone's got to wrestle that out of them then, haven't they? We had Jane Ludlow here with us yesterday. Emma Burning commentary today. When you think of the Arsenal teams of old, they would not allow that to happen, would they? No,
and they do look like they're making some really silly errors in the games. I think they've really taken their foot off the gas. Renee Slager spoke before the game about neutralising the emotions, not getting too high around, the Champions League final prospects, but also not getting too low when you lose to Aston Villa, off the back of an emotional week. So I get that. I think she said all the right things, and I don't doubt for one moment that the messages are the correct messages to the players. But sometimes, what's in your stomach, the intrinsic motivation to just keep winning and to be a machine. And the team that I see actually doing that at the moment, obviously Chelsea, title winners again. I see it in Manchester United. That really? Mentality to win. The hunger, the desire, the nastiness on the football pitch to win a football match. I didn't see that from Arsenal today, and I wonder whether there's a piece in it with Arsenal, a wider piece around, the highs. You talk about emotions in football, the highs of playing at the Emirates, playing at the Groupama Stadium in Lyon, in front of thousands and thousands of people, to then come into Crawley Town, up against Brighton, and Brighton just were like, hang on a minute, we're ready for this. We're going to be aggressive and challenge your perception to sort of go, how much do you want this right now?
Is that the same at Villa Park, though? Exactly.
There wasn't thousands and thousands at Villa Park, but yeah, they can deal with the intensity of a stadium. But I just think that Arsenal have been, I don't want to say found out, because I know that they can increase their performance levels, but I think what Renee Slagers will be asking right now is, why can't you do it week in, week out? Because that's what winners do. They find a way to win continuously when the chips are down, when your back's against the wall, when you don't feel like it. Sorry, but you've got to feel like it because it's your job. And I just think the players were put into a situation today from Brighton's players where they suffered. And I think it happened from the very first minute. I really do, because Brighton went on the front foot. They started playing balls in behind the centre-backs and recognised that that was an area where, we can get at Arsenal here. Catley, Williamson in that situation with Zinsberger behind, there's an opportunity to get at them, and I think Brighton's game plan was almost perfect.
How much of it plays into, and we talked about it with Brighton, the players announcing before the game that they're going, talked about that infinitum, but for Arsenal as well, are there players there that are doubting their position next season? Is that maybe playing into any of it?
Very
Am I
potentially.
speculating wildly?
Well, no, I wouldn't say you're speculating, but again, getting to a Champions League final, which I don't think they were expecting, I personally wasn't expecting, expedites the situation, doesn't it? So if you get to a Champions League final, you've got more eyes on you, you've got more players wanting to join Arsenal. Now, that means there's potentially those players thinking, I'm under threat here more quickly than I thought I might be. And I do think Arsenal need strengthening. I think in terms of the goalkeeping, they need strengthening. They probably need another world-class centre-half, a full-back. They need someone to maybe... I like Stina Blackstenius. I think she works so hard. But in terms of a goal scorer, she's not been getting the rubber of the green. So you do need someone to go and push Alessia Russo. So, yeah, that plays into it as a player. But I think there always needs to be that fear that you're fighting for your place. Because if you aren't, then you get comfortable. But I totally agree what Izzy says as well. Those big games, they're the easy games. You don't need to be motivated for those games. Whereas, and it's no disrespect to Brighton or Crawley, but those games where you're only playing in front of a few 100,000 people. The weather's nice today, but it's when you're back in December and it's wet and cold and it's a Tuesday night and you're playing in front of 500 people. They're the things you need to motivate yourself for. And like you say, your Manchester United and your Chelseas, they do that. They don't always play their best, but they find a way. And this is the thing I think with Arsenal, when they are on form, they are unbelievable. They are so hard to beat. But I don't think they've got that gear just yet. If they're not playing well, how do they win? That's what they need to find.
Let's go back to the positives and Brighton, because you've got to give Villa credit for the other night. You've got to give Brighton credit for today in what they did, how they set up. And even Dario Vidosic saying in his interview that he had injuries again, last-minute changes right before this one too, but to adapt again.
Yeah, process-driven. He's not really too fussed about the club record of, almost securing that 5th spot, which is going to be the highest ever WSL finish, which is brilliant, I'm sure, for the people above Dario at the football club. But I like the way he's spoken about the process, because he knows that he'll be looking at the points they've dropped against teams below them this season and gone, next season they need to win those football matches, so that it's almost like you give yourself a position to be competitive against the teams above you, that you can nick a point, that you can go and get that big win like they did this afternoon. But ultimately, I think they're in a brilliant place. I think they're a very attractive football club, and I think they dealt with, the turmoil pre-game really well. I think that's massive credit to the club, the staff and the players as well who played today in the squad, because it's not easy to deal with little, things like that when you're in your match day routine and everything's super focused. If something rocks you, to get centred again, it's difficult, but they did that and they executed a performance which was, like I said, I thought the game plan was almost perfect. I thought defensively, the back three, Bergstrand and Caitlin Hayes in particular, I thought they're absolutely outstanding. And I think that gave them the platform, and, they've got the quality up front as well.
I think going forward, Brighton are in a brilliant position, because I think you look at years gone by, the last few seasons, Liverpool finishing high up the table, Spurs, Aston Villa, but maybe I would say they overachieved in that moment and they've struggled to replicate that. Whereas it's been a slow burn for Brighton, hasn't it? They've got a lot of resources, in terms of the facilities that they're looking to input into the women's game, and maybe I think people expected more from them more quickly. And maybe that's one, it's football and the world that we live in. We want instant results. Whereas now the foundation that's been built, I think they're in a really good position to push on next season. We won't see them fall like we've seen from other teams. They will push on and really sort of push the narrative of those big top four.
Courtney, thank you. Izzy, great penultimate performance before you pull your boots back on for next season. Looking forward to seeing you back out.
Stop starting fake news.
Fake news. Me? Never. Only truth and... I'd love to see it, Izzy. Love to see it. I'll run on with the magic sponge. The WSL, it keeps on delivering. Right, and as for Brighton, they're rocking bright on to the end. Goodbye.